So the title of our project is Summarizing Teams Meeting, and this is how the UI of our application looks like. On the top, you have two options. The first one is to upload video or audio. So here we are supposed to upload the recording of our meeting. It can be of any format like MP3, WAV, or MP4. The second, we have option to upload a VTD file. So VTD is basically a file which contains all the user data like the speaker of a sentence and the timestamp of a sentence. And in case of Microsoft Teams, it gives you an option to download a VTD file of every meeting. So let's upload a VTD file right now. So for the sake of saving some time, we already have a sample right here. So this is how it will look like once the loading is done. And we have two types right here. The first one is transcript and the second is summary. So in case of transcript, we have two things. The first one is action words. Action words are basically the words where someone orders someone to do something or requests someone to do something. So in this case, we are summarizing a YouTube video. So the action words are the words where the speaker of the video asks you to do something. So it can be something like go to the initial setup or use the option to reboot the device. Basically, the instructions in the video they're also highlighted right here. So the words which are highlighted right here are the action words. And this is the entire transcript of the video. It is all the sentences which are spoken in the video. And next is the summary part. So summary has keywords. So keywords are basically the most important words of the meeting. If you don't want to go through the entire summary, you can just go through the keywords to get the context of the meeting. Next we have the summary of the meeting. So summary is the title and the actual summary of the meeting. You can also download the summary if you want to, and you can also edit the summary if you want to. So like if I want to add or remove something, like if I want to remove the last sentence, I can remove it and click on save, and it will save the updated summary of the meeting. Now in case of VTD files, we also have some extra data like the duration of the meeting, the total speakers and active users. So active users are basically the users which spoke at least 25 words in the meeting. And next we also have speaker distribution. So speaker distribution is calculated based on how many words someone spoke in a meeting. So Arya Parekh spoke around 70% of the votes, Mary Savla spoke around 21% of the votes, and so on. Next we have keywords. So keywords are basically the most important words which I mentioned earlier. In the transcript, we have action words, the same thing which I mentioned earlier. And then in case of VTD files, we also have the name of the speaker, the timestamp, and the sentence which the speaker spoke. And we also have the action words which I highlighted right here. And this is how the transcript will look like in case of VTD file. Next, we have the summary, which is basically the same thing which I mentioned earlier. So now let's take a look at the code of the project. So we have two folders right here and one file. So readme file is basically the description of the project. The first folder right here is a folder for the front end, and we have a lot of different files right here, and most of the files are generated by React itself. So we didn't have to write anything for that. Our main code lies in the SRC folder, and in SRC we have three different folders again. So first one is assets. So assets are basically the icons like arrow and opening and closing icons. Next, we have dashboard. So dashboard is basically the main code which I showed right here. So the code for this whole UI is divided into multiple components. So there is this component for sidebar, this component for inserts and transcript and summary, and each component can have its child components inside it. So in case of transcript, we have two child components. The first one is action words, and second is the transcript itself. And the code for all of this is written at here. So there are multiple components. Each has their own parent and child components. The navbar right here represents the top part, the sidebar right here represents the left part, right, which is right here, and so on. There are multiple components right here. So dashboard folder is the main components for summary. Next we have landing page components, and this folder has some extra components like header, footer, login, and sign up, which you can see once you log out of your account. So the code for this is written in the landing page components, and that basically summarizes our entire front end. And next let's take a look at the backend. So in the backend, the code that ties everything together is the index.js file. It contains a front end, the database, and the Python file. So let's take a look at how it works. So starting from the top, we first import some of the libraries, and then we set up some basic configuration, connect to the database, and this is where the different path of our application lies. So first of all, we have a path for signing up in case of new users. Then there's a path for logging in case of an existing user, and like if the user wants to access his account. Next, we have the path for getting data. So this is used to get a user's previous meeting data. Next, we have the option to update. Now, in case if a user wants to update the summary, then we can use this function to update the summary. Next, we have a function to generate the actual summary, and this is the main function of our application. So in case of VTD, first of all, we see the account in which from which request is coming from. Next, we extract the data from VTD file and the name of the user, the contribution of each user, and we calculate the contribution of each user right here. We also extract the individual sentences which are spoken in the meeting. Next, we run different Python files like summary.py, keywords.py, title.py, and actionwords.py. And in the end, we store all of this in a variable called as meeting. And after that, we store the meeting variable in the user's account in the database. And then we finally send it to the front end so that the user can see the meeting data. Next, we have the function to do the same thing, but this is for audio and video. In case of audio and video, we don't have the data of the user, like who is the speaker and the duration of the meeting. So we don't really calculate that. So we skip the first part and the rest of the part is the same. So directly start with the summary part, and we store the meeting data in the database as well. And this function is used to run Python files in Node.js. Now let's take a look at the individual Python files, starting from action.py. So this file is used to get all the action words of the meeting. So action words are basically imperative sentences, as I mentioned earlier. And in this case, we have created our own corpus of around 500 words. And if a sentence has a word from this corpus, like must be, need to, or obliged to, then that means that the sentence is an imperative sentence and it is considered to be an action word. So action.py basically searches for sentences which contains words from this corpus of 500 words. Next, we have keywords.py. So keywords.py basically uses Spacy for extracting the most relevant words of a meeting. And if we go down here, we also filter these words to remove all the duplicate words and remove all the words which are too long for a keyword. Now these keywords are also ranked and they are stored in a text file. And from this text file, we use the most relevant keyword to extract the title. So title of Python basically uses the keywords from right here, and it uses the most relevant keyword to generate a title. And finally, we have summary.py. So summary.py basically divides the entire transcript into block of 502 words, and these 502 words are then summarized one by one, and they are summarized using Facebook BART model. And the goal here is to achieve a summary length of around 70 to 80% of the original length of the transcript. And that's pretty much how our entire project works. Thanks for watching.